The Business of Art, brought to you by the Video Department. You were just asking me a question. Lindsay Harris here is our guest. What question did you just ask me?
Do you have joy in your work? I see all of these beautiful things you do. Yeah. One would assume. So
certainly lots of joy from my clients and from, it's really rewarding to have worked hard to develop a skill and then to create a business around that skill or around a variety of skills. That is very rewarding. And when I'm actually out doing certain things, sometimes any job can be boring, and certainly in video there is no exception.
Yes.
But I love being out in nature, so I get to do that a lot. I love working with kids and families, and I get to do that a lot. There is joy, but I definitely have missed some joy from my time in the theater.
Okay.
But before we get too deep into that,
Yes.
because this is not a podcast about me.
I was just thinking, this is getting good, man. I would watch this.
This is not a podcast about me. But so before we get to where you are now in terms of joy,
Yes.
why don't you start us back? Let's just start back at the very beginning. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Danville, Virginia.
Yeah.
A big textile town. I find few people know about it, but then there are a few gems here and there where they're either from there or have driven through there or something.
Doesn't Danville have a funny slogan when you enter? It's
Does it?
Yeah.
Probably.
It's something about we're a business town or something. It's something kind of awkward, but yeah, no, I know Danville.
Yeah, I'm so familiar with it, I don't pay attention. My husband even says, do you know what road that's on? No, I don't. I just know where I'm going.
Well, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
I got... at some point in my life, because especially as artists, you end up piecing together a living.
Yes.
If you're really trying to pursue that.
Absolutely.
And so one of the things that I was gifted with earlier in life was the ability to play tennis. And so they were doing a USTA certification in Danville.
Really?
Isn't that random?
Never would have guessed. Wow.
What universities are down there?
Averett is now a university.
Okay.
It wasn't always a university. I believe that's it.
Okay.
Everett's it.
Yeah. We were definitely either at a university or a high school.
Yeah.
Where they have 6 or 8 courts or whatever.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Danville. Okay. And so you all the way through high school?
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
And where'd you go to college?
Virginia Tech. Go Hokies.
Go Hokies. Yeah. That's right.
I majored in engineering at Virginia Tech.
That's
Go
right.
figure. Always wanted to do music, but I did engineering.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. What was that decision?
I think traditional mindset, you'll never make any money as a musician. And the whole, follow your purpose and what drives you wasn't a thing back then. So, yeah.
Where do you stand on that now? Follow your purpose and what drives you?
That's a complicated question.
It is.
As you said, yeah. I have come to the awareness that I don't think I could have followed a purpose at that point in my life. That's kind of what I think we think everybody should have this thing that is theirs and they own it. And then, even teenagers heading into college feel like failures because they don't have it yet. And that's part of the lovely life experience is that you gain those things. You figure out your purpose by experiencing life in different capacities and maybe being unhappy for a little while you experience something that's not for you. So I think there's lots of merit to living out your purpose. I'm glad I'm doing it now. I would highly recommend anybody in my boat, which is who I serve now, do the same. I think it's worth analyzing. I don't think it's that clear cut for everybody, depending on what season of life you're in. So, yeah.
It's hard to expect an 18-year-old or even a 22-year-old to know
their
purpose.
Absolutely.
And they say that your brain is not even fully developed until you're 25.
Right. Yep.
So I think we should maybe try and reshape that narrative of you need to have it all figured out by the time you're leaving college.
Absolutely.
And I went back to college. I dropped out for a while, went back. I think I was 25 or so when I graduated.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was such a better experience the second time around.
Yes.
What's the rush?
Absolutely. Why not? Well, and so did you feel what was that like for you? Going
back?
Yeah.
It was definitely interesting because I was, not too much older, but a bit older than my classmates.
Yeah.
I was initially in the theater department of ECU.
Okay.
Left that, went back and got a degree in English, so different crowd.
Yes.
Different classroom type.
Yes. Absolutely.
We're sitting in desks and talking about literature versus like playing theater games.
Yes. Yeah. Lovely.
But it was great because I was much more focused. I knew what my purpose was. I literally knew why I was there. I knew that by that point, I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't want to go to film school, but I need to get a degree that will somehow help me. And I learned very early on in the arts, people do not create opportunities for you unless you're famous already or like really successful.
Yes.
People do not create opportunities for you. You have to create opportunities for yourself.
Absolutely.
And so my mindset was, I'm going to learn how to write scripts.
I love that.
And that's what I did.
I love that.
And it was good.
Yes. That's fantastic.
When did you... So you mentioned that you have a performing background.
Mm-hmm.
Did you do theater in high school?
I did drama club.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. Just a little bit. And I will never forget somebody giving me the chance. I wanted to sing. I sang secretly in my basement for years. That's a funny story for another day, why I did that. But I didn't believe I could. And so I asked a theater teacher to let me stand on a platform one day after everybody had gone home and sing, something from Les Miserables.
Okay.
And she did. And that was a transformative experience for me.
It was just the two of y'all?
It's like the bug. Yeah, and the janitor who came in at the end and clapped.
Yeah.
Bless his heart.
Yeah.
I wish I knew who that was. He was dark in the background. I couldn't see him because the lights were out. But that was wonderful. And so I always wanted it, but had this belief that I could not do that. And so I went to college for engineering. Somewhere in college, I sang for who was my husband. He was my husband then, but I had just met him. And they were like, wow, this is what? Why are you not singing in public? And so that started a career of just trying to get out there and have the, confidence to sing for people. I already played piano, but it was always classical piano. And when I married those two together eventually in my 20s, after I'd been married for years, it was just kind of like a magical combination. So I ended up joining a band. And yeah, I loved it. I'm so comfortable on a stage now, which I never thought would be a thing. But I also know that's not my purpose. I had a season where it really was, and I loved it. It's not anymore. And that's okay with me.
Were you playing piano and singing in this band? Mm-hmm. What kind of music were you doing?
Everything. Everything from classic rock to soul, Aretha Franklin, Adele, gosh, I'm trying to think. Prince. We ran the gamut. A few country songs. Mm-hmm. We were really just a cover band, but we had an eclectic mix of what everybody liked, and everybody entertained what somebody else liked, and it was such a good mix that people seemed to enjoy, what we brought. So it was fun.
Was this in Blacksburg?
No, this was actually here in Richmond.
Okay.
Yeah.
So take us, how did you get to Richmond?
I met my husband while I was in school. I was co-oping, actually. We were both doing like an internship type thing. And I'm sorry. I'm old. All the sequence of events. He was already working in Richmond. I went to work at the company he was working for as like an internship. I was his intern, actually. So we met, and I ended up coming here because we were in love and we got married. So, yeah.
What was that company?
Philip Morris.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Altria. Yep.
My dad worked for Philip Morris for like 15 years.
Absolutely.
Like, that was his first big job.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that used to be why a lot of people were brought here.
Absolutely.
What year was that? Do you remember?
2002.
Okay.
I graduated. Yep.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
And you've been here ever since?
I have.
What part of town did you move to?
Powhatan.
Okay.
I've been all over. We were on the West End. We were in Midlothian. We were in close to Bon Air, and now we're out in Powhatan.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What was that decision?
Going to Powhatan?
Yeah.
We were in Powhatan twice.
Okay.
When we were young and first married and both working at Philip Morris, we moved out to Powhatan when land was cheap and we could get,
It's right on 95.
Beautiful. Yeah. And well, actually it wasn't on 95. We were driving 45 minutes to work. Yeah, it was a long way. So we came back into the city. That was part of the issue. We would drive to school together to get our MBA. We'd drive to work together. We both worked in cubicles across from each other. It was too much. And so, yeah, anyway, we moved into town to at least decrease the drive. And as we got older and had our daughter, I realized that we really, that slow lifestyle out in rural America felt better to me for her sake. And so we went back. And I love it. Yeah.
The schools are good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she loves it. It's cool. It's very, feels like a small town, even though it's not. And we can get to everything in just a few minutes, which is nice where we are.
Right.
It's good.
How old's your daughter?
8.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So she's just experiencing,
Yes.
the schools. What kind of stuff is she into? Is she doing sports? Is she doing drama?
She takes piano.
Okay.
She's an artist.
Yeah.
Yes, and she's so creative. And she says to me now, I don't know whether I want to be a doctor or work at Brewster's. And then another day she'll say, I might want to be an artist. Oh, I might want to be a dancer. I might, it's that age of all the things are possibilities. And I love that for her.
Awesome.
I love that for her. So.
Has she started taking dance classes?
No, I've asked her, and it's funny because I grew up with, do all the things. You're going to try all the things, do all the things, and if it's a lot, that's just what people do. She's in a different era where she's like, I don't like having too many things to do. Okay. Can I just take piano? And I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's probably the way to go instead of, every hour is packed with something.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But she's experiencing things in other ways. She dances she has her own dance parties. I mean, So we'll see. We'll see where her interests take her. Yeah.
Well, if she ever decides to take classes, I know it's far away from you guys, but I recommend West End Academy of Dance.
Okay.
Great company.
Yes.
I do some video work for them, but they're just really good people.
Absolutely.
All right, so we're back in Richmond, and you're working at Philip Morris. Mm-hmm. And when do you start developing your skill set that you're working in now around leadership?
Absolutely. I had exposure to leadership early on. So I was in an engineering department, but very quickly moved into like a business planning function where I was alongside factory leadership all the time and seeing what's required to lead a large company like that or a manufacturing organization and supporting that. So that was kind of like a backseat to it. I was supporting in a business analyst type function. And just started to move around the company, seeing some of those different facets. And I moved from there to a nonprofit organization and supported a leadership team there. That's where I really started to get some of my team dynamics and team development, believe it or not, and to understand leadership. We were a multi-campus nonprofit organization. It was a church, actually.
You want to shout it out?
Yeah. Passion Community Church.
Oh, yeah.
Woohoo.
Yeah, I'm familiar. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we were growing. And so I got to see that organization scale, mission-oriented organization, and learn how to, you're still developing people who are leading and doing things. It's very similar. And that's where my passion for that really kind of developed. I got to see it lived out well in corporate America from behind the scenes. I got to lead it there. And for 13 years, that's what I did, from just coming in, early to being on that senior leadership team and having people to lead myself. So
you're 13 years at Passion?
I was.
Wow.
Yeah, I was for a long time. And then I left to take care of my daughter and supported another business owner where I got to manage a team there and support her. And what I kept seeing was when you get to that level of like senior leadership, it doesn't matter where you are. And former contacts I had in corporate America, there's a level of loneliness of there's nobody for me to talk to about what I need and where I feel ill-equipped or where I feel like things are not functioning well. Networking, yeah, but there's still a line you don't cross in that. And also in business ownership, I'm sure like it's you, and you. You can go network, but when there are issues, who do you talk to about developing yourself or not wanting to do the work anymore that you used to love? And why is that happening to me? While I am all about therapy and mental health help. It's not always that. It's more of let's just take a pause and figure out where you are, do some inside work, because so many of us are driven to just keep moving nonstop. And that's part of the problem, I think, is no inner work and figuring out where we need to develop. We just need to fix all the things. And now I need to fix myself. And I'm looking from the outside in, but not really inward. It's more of what's the thing I can do to fix it and then keep moving. And it's a little more complicated than that. So, yeah.
Have you done much reading of Stoic philosophy?
No.
Sounds kind of like what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's all about how you can't control outside forces. You can only control your response.
Absolutely. Now, see, I've heard that, just never labeled that
Yeah,
way. But
yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
There's a great podcast, The Daily Stoic.
have to check that
Ryan
out.
Holiday.
Okay.
Phenomenal author. I have several of his books. He wrote The Ego is the Enemy, which I have tattooed on my chest, quite literally.
Yes.
And he wrote The Obstacle is the Way. Phenomenal book. I get chills even thinking about that
Okay.
book. Some of the stories in that book. And every chapter is like a story. Like I think one of them was like a chapter of like Ulysses S. Grant or something like
Yes.
that. And it's talking about obstacles that ended up being opportunities for him.
Yes. Absolutely.
And so, yeah. So what is some of the like internal work that you do? Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. It's really a matter of creating like safety and space to say you are worth the time to sit still. Even any form of meditation, just getting comfortable with being still, because that's when you talk about the ego and separating from the ego. If you don't do that, we're just in auto mode all the time and very connected to that ego and responsive versus, I can't tell you how many times I have experienced massive insight just in being quiet, not even thinking about anything, and all of a sudden there it is. It's not magic. It just is what it is. And we don't give ourselves time for that. So through my own process of kind of overcoming that is how I came to this passion for helping other people do it. But it took hard work. Like, it's uncomfortable when you're not used to being still, to sit still and start just being quiet, figuring out what I like, what I enjoy, what brings me joy in work. This is where I get to the joy at work piece. That I really do believe you get to that point if you give yourself space and long enough to figure it out through a process of figuring out your purpose right now, here in this time frame and season, figuring out what mindsets are helping you and what aren't, figuring out how not to be so responsive, figuring out how to look at obstacles as, what is this going to help me learn or do? Not how is this stopping me from doing something else? Maybe it's meant to redirect my path. And oh my goodness, when you start to live inside that level of energy and awareness that things could be happening that you didn't plan on, it's different. And it's almost like things are offered to you never would have had or seen or experienced in that tight, like, get it done mode that so many of us live in. So, yeah.
What was as much as you're comfortable talking about it, what was your journey to this awareness? What sort of things did you have to overcome?
Absolutely. I have always been an achiever. I do a assessment with people. It's a saboteur assessment, and we look at like the saboteurs that are just killing us. And mine is hyperachiever. I am not worth anything. I'm not succeeding if I am not constantly achieving, whatever that means. And so I literally, my brain was a scroll of what was next all day long, even until I was asleep. Who needed me? What did I need to do to serve them? What was on my list to get done? And just keep going. So that was so normal for me. I didn't realize I had no concept of what I needed personally, at work, in my career. I had just been going for years.
What age are you when you're kind of experiencing this and coming to terms with this?
I'd say probably 38, 39.
Yeah.
I was now a mom.
Yeah.
So you add that element into, professionalism and just maintaining a marriage, which is hard work, and all of the things. Aging parents, and family members, family dynamics. It was just a lot. It was a lot for me. And I got to a point after, I was probably a 4 or 5 year period of just being overworked and overwhelmed. Nobody was overworking me. I was overworking me. My expectation of myself was higher than anybody else's expectation of me. But it got to a point where I had the gift of being able to take a sabbatical with my husband. He was given a sabbatical, and the gift was extended to me so that he could truly leave and take a break. So we were gone for 6 weeks. And everything changed. Like, it wasn't even a matter of rest. It was a matter of suddenly being, I describe it as being the frog. I wrote about this a couple of weeks ago. I had been in increasing temperatures for years. I got out of it, actually had some time to myself to figure out what was nourishing to my soul. And when I went back to work, nobody did anything wrong. Nothing changed, but I couldn't stand it. I was having anxiety and panic attacks in the middle of meetings just because I couldn't get back to that pace. So I gently said, can I take a couple things off my plate? I think I need some space, but it didn't help. It was almost like that awareness. There had to be some deeper level of healing. And so I kind of restructured my life. I joined a program that helped me discover my purpose, to build a business even. And that's where I went with that. I decided I wanted to take control of my own time, figure out what worked for me. And there was only one way out of that, was to try something different. I couldn't go back. It's almost like they weren't the problem. My job wasn't the problem, but the environment I had created for myself was the problem. And I couldn't see another way out of that. It just wasn't possible. So I did. And I am so fulfilled now. Will that last? I don't know. I leave that door open too, that this may not be the thing forever either. But in this season, owning a business and helping other people and having the choice of what I get to do with my time and helping other people figure out how to restructure where they're at before they hit a wall like I did is one of my biggest, motivators for doing what I do now. I don't think I had to get to that point, but there was no one to call it out and say, what are you doing? Yeah.
So what year did you leave Passion?
2020, it was 2021.
Okay.
I think it was.
And
yeah.
so walk through what happened when you left and what were the steps you took to start your business and get to where you are now?
Absolutely. Well, I slowly started to dismantle my role there. They were so kind to me. I said I was leading worship there. I was a communications director. I had a team I was leading. They're always in the church world. It's even though we try to keep good boundaries, the people you serve are on all day long, right? They're in need all day long. So I would try to set boundaries there, but I just said, hey, can I just do one of these roles for a season? Is there a way to do that? And so we did that. And then I kept thinking, this isn't getting better. I don't want to go back. I find myself not wanting to go back. And so I kind of decided, hey, I'm going to try to figure out how to exit this. I think even for my daughter in the season, this is better. And so I sought out somebody that I worked for when I had my daughter, a copywriter out of Northern Virginia who has a lovely team and a lovely business, The Hungry Typewriter. If you ever need copywriting, yes, big shout out. They are incredible. You should check them out. And I just said, hey, do you have any needs right now? And she needed a creative director. And it was part-time work. It was leadership. I got to lead a team. I love good copywriting, and I loved that team. I already knew them and loved them. And so I thought, I'm just going to do this for a while. And at the same time, Matt, I got an ad. We all get ads. I wasn't even thinking about this. That said, are you looking for freedom from corporate? And it resonated with me. I wasn't in a corporate environment. Again, nobody was doing anything wrong, but I knew exactly what they were talking about. And the premise of that program was to build a business. And I thought, I've never thought about doing that. Should I do that? I don't know, man. What's it gonna hurt? Let's do this, man. And I talked to my husband about it, and he said, if you feel like this is something nudging you, go do it. You got the time, go do it while you're, so I was building a business on one hand and also supporting another company. Total change. But it was wonderful. It was like a refreshing change my soul needed in that season, to step away from the many things that were on my plate without having to try to sort through them. And I found the growth in that, growing past what I was doing before and doing something different was what I need. That's what I needed. I didn't even realize my capacity, that I could build a business, that I could write, that I could, I knew I could coach people and lead them. I had been doing that, but that I could take that and extend it to people beyond my little community and help them, better their lives before they got to the point I did. And it's working. That's what's so fulfilling for me, is it's needed. It was a need. And so following that leading has really led to my own fulfillment even. So, yeah.
Can you shout out that program that you did?
Absolutely. They are Thrive Hive. Trish,
yeah. I saw that on your LinkedIn.
Trisha Dempsey is the creator of that program, and she did something similar. So that's another thing I'm seeing. I get to help executive women now through that program. I don't think they would mind me saying that they're one of my clients, and I get to coach through the program. But so many people are I see that was validated for me inside of that program. So many women even are unhappy and don't know what to do about it. And this was a nice off ramp to try something different in a season with their expertise that they know they have and have no way to, get out there in front of people and serve people with. So that's what we do.
And what's the name of your business again?
Leader Haven.
Leader Haven.
Yep.
And where does joy come in? What's the origin of your pursuit of joy? My
pursuit of joy. So as I was building that business and figuring out what makes me purposeful, I realized that my purpose, the way I worded it, was to help people feel safe, seen, and known. And I realized I had felt the most safe, seen, and known during my time on teams that were functioning well. And what I found was the skills I was learning on those teams, the relationships the bonds even, that sounds odd to say about a team, that you're working with, but they're unique, and those skills transfer into my personal relationships. They transfer to the home. I learned a lot about how I navigate with people from what I did at work even. And so to me, that was joy. And I feel like we miss that. We've labeled the workplace as, drab and a place we have to be and an obligation and an exchange. I'm going to do this thing for you and I'm going to get money. And Monday's coming again. All those feelings. I would sit with friends, in every job, and we would lament that Monday was coming. Even in a job I kind of sort of liked. And I don't think it has to be that way. I really don't. I have that hypothesis that, and it's true. I've seen teams do it. When you have the right skills, when the leader's healthy and has joy in who they are and what they bring to the table, when they're confident and they know their boundaries and they're able to speak for themselves, they create a level of safety for a team. And then that team can explore things like, how do we build trust with each other? How do we navigate conflict instead of sweeping things under the rug and maintain an artificial harmony where everybody thinks we're great because we're friendly, but we're really not. And we're just, skirting around deeper issues that are gonna eventually rear their ugly heads. Everybody's gonna have an ugly time at some point when somebody can't keep it in anymore. What's bothering them, or that they can't share their opinion, or that they can't participate in decision making, whatever those perceptions are, can be removed through a little bit of work that I feel really equipped to help those leaders and those teams do. So, and to me, that is joy, because when you have that dynamic, suddenly work becomes a place you like being. You're all on the same page with what it is you're trying to accomplish, and it's exciting because we're all contributing to it and we know our roles to contribute to it. And then when there's an issue, we navigate it together, and then that we can look at each other across the table the next day and think, daggone, we did a good job there, man. We navigated that well, and now we're stronger because we did something hard, which nobody wants to do. Most days we'll avoid the hard stuff. It's nice. We're just nice to each other. So too nice, in my opinion. Yes.
Talk more about that.
Oh my gosh. I think as a culture, we are devoid of being able to have a really good conversation about hard things and leave room for the fact that everybody's different. Everybody has opinions. And yes, I can feel very strongly about what you believe about something. But that ego state you talked about, to be able to hold that as this is not who I am. It's what I kind of believe in my brain right now, but, that's interesting that you think differently. Let me entertain what that looks like for you. And even if I decide I still don't agree, it doesn't mean that you're a lesser person or we can't continue to have some sort of relationship and appreciate each other. I think we've lost the art of that level of conversation. I don't see that anywhere very often. And I think that's why when you encounter it, a person who's able to hold that space, that's endearing. And all of a sudden it's like, this person's different. I like being in their presence. I like being able to have that conversation. And it's even better when both can do that. So there's an artwork to that. And I think you can start it in the workplace with how you talk about work things, which are more benign. They're not that personal. If you can get those skills in place in the workplace, they translate into other areas. You suddenly realize, that thing I did with my coworker today, I can do that right here and now. That bothered me a little for this, and this reason. Talk more about what you just said. Like, I don't understand why you would say something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and you did a really good job of talking about this subject without bringing up politics at all. And we do not talk about politics on this podcast. It's a politic-free podcast, but that certainly relates to what you're talking about.
Absolutely,
right?
100%.
And I think that like the solution is, and you're saying this as well, we're just saying it in different ways, is community building.
Yes.
And like you said, you do that at your job, or you should. A good leader will help facilitate that.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. But yeah, I mean, I think the people that you work with, and especially having worked in the theater so much, like I related very much to a sports team. Like when you're going through stuff together like that, you build incredible bonds.
Yes,
like,
you do.
In sports, you're risking your life. I mean,
Yes.
literally
Yes.
in some
Yeah.
cases. And in theater, you're like you're risking it at all. You're risking your heart, right?
Yes.
You're like so vulnerable.
Absolutely.
And so, I can only speak from the actor-director relationship and like the cast relationship. But in those especially, I've experienced some, what's the word I'm looking for? Transcendent relationships.
Yes.
And it's always the ones, I mean, I don't really have anything bad to say about cast as a whole that I work with, but the ones that got the closest together were the ones who overcame the most adversity.
Yes.
And without going into too much detail, there was a specific show that we did where, for a variety of reasons, the director had just sort of mentally checked out. And this has happened to me more than once, so I could be talking about a number of productions.
Yes.
But like literally checked out and was like moving. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so like their investment in the overall picture of what was happening had just really lessened from when we first started the project.
Yeah.
And I've been in a lot of shows where directors didn't do a good job directing. That was the first time where they were literally not there.
Yes.
And so we just like came together, and we would have almost like prayers every night before the show. We would like hold hands and like have these like chants almost and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And we got so close as a group.
Yeah.
And it was very special, and still good friends with a lot of those people today.
Absolutely.
And that happens in the worlds that we're talking about, in arts, in sports, in different things where you're sort of outside of the clubs, where you're outside of the norm. But there does seem to be some sort of unspoken mental hurdle about that. And I think that there's just so much like negative talk around work and like the hustle mindset, like about that being toxic.
Yes.
But I think that's two separate conversations.
Right.
Because we all have to have jobs.
Yes.
Or businesses. Like we all have to do something to contribute one way or another. And so why not make the best of it with the people that you have to do it with?
Absolutely.
Work. And, I've told the story before, but my freshman acting teacher and sort of mentor told me that he wants to cast the people who he's going to have a beer with after rehearsal.
Yes.
It's not necessarily about who's the most talented.
Right.
It's about who I want to spend time with.
Yes, and the chemistry of doing,
And that's got to
absolutely.
be, I don't think necessarily like, I'm sure bad leaders or bad managers might not be factoring that in when they are hiring.
Yes.
They're like thinking more about results.
Right.
Versus I have to spend 40 hours a week with this person.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Well, and sometimes you develop that chemistry.
Yes.
But you absolutely can tell in a couple of conversations if you have zero.
Right.
Or a very low amount. It doesn't mean you
Yes.
can't develop it, but in a hiring conversation, I think that's pretty important.
Yeah.
Even chemistry with the work itself. So that's one of the
course.
things, like, joy at work. I say it's a lot about teamwork, but it's also about knowing what you do really well. And not just your strengths, because you can be really good at something and not like doing it. Mm-hmm. And then we carry a level of guilt of why I'm really good at this thing. Why do I procrastinate every time I have to do it? Or I'm not doing it because I'm just, for whatever reason, just not getting it done. And then we carry guilt and other people shame us for it. And at the end of the day, we're wired to get joy out of certain types of work. And when you know that and you can talk about it openly with the team, things change dramatically. I talked to a friend this morning about being a starter and not a finisher, which a lot of people are. I'm a starter.
Yep.
I'm not a wonderful finisher. And when I realize that, I can put things in place to help me. My team knows that. They know what I need when I'm trying to get something nailed down. Or it may be that we need to shift roles on a team. Or as a business owner, it may be that I need to just call it and say, I need help in this area. Like if I'm gonna invest, I must invest in this area because it is not, I can't make myself do it. Even though I'm great at it, I can't make myself do it. Yeah.
And right now at your business, it's just you right now?
Just me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How has that been being a solopreneur, doing everything?
It has been, to be honest, it's been life-giving. I know that's probably not the answer you were expecting, but I'm learning about myself. I am networking with people and learning what they do. I am proving myself wrong in a lot of areas. I never thought I would write or be on LinkedIn, but it's become one of my favorite places to be because I had to be. I had to be to make sure that, I kind of kept a read on what's going on in the world and in business. And so there's all kinds of little things I'm learning about running a business and where I need help. And I've given myself a lot of grace because the whole point of doing this whole thing was that I was not going to be that person again, staying up till all hours of the night, getting things done. And there's some days where I have to just say, not doing that.
Yeah.
Does that mean I'm not going to make progress? Yeah. And that's okay.
That is okay.
It is okay.
I've really sort of been putting my foot down about working past like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
I'll do it for sure if I have a deadline and like, a job gets booked. I have to take that job. So my editing time gets pushed back or whatever. I'll do what it takes to get stuff done. But if it's not urgent.
Right.
No, we can wait. And I'm up early, so I'm in my email by 7:38 every morning anyway. So like we can deal with it first thing in the morning before the world really starts.
Absolutely. I don't know about you. I've learned to appreciate first thing in the morning before the world really starts.
It's terrific.
When it's dark and quiet and I can do whatever I want.
Well, Allison is in school for sign language right now. I don't know if y'all talked about that.
Yes. Oh, I love that.
But she doesn't get home till 9 from class. And she's kind of more of a sleeper in anyway, so we're on different schedules.
Yeah.
So I'm up at 6 or 7 most mornings, and she'll sleep in because she's working till 9.
Yes.
It's impossible to turn your brain off.
Oh, yeah.
You need at least a 2-hour buffer.
Absolutely.
From whatever your last thing was to when you go to sleep.
Yeah, to give your brain a break. By the way, can I just tell you, I am a scroller. Sometimes I will scroll TikTok or Instagram, and it's hypnotic. I've learned that from my own coach, and that it, like, the things it does to your brain, to your point, even that, like, if you can give yourself time away from that, it's transformative for your sleep habits.
I deleted Instagram and YouTube from my phone.
Good for you.
But then I discovered that I still had Facebook on it. I haven't deleted that yet. I didn't know that Facebook had the same Reels function, and it does. And I gotta say, it's better. Because here's why it's better, though. And here's why it's actually better for me. Is because I can scroll, and Instagram and YouTube on the Reels, everything 60 seconds or less. Occasionally, you'll get a little bit longer video from like an influencer.
Yeah.
Instagram, I'll get like a 7, 10, 20-minute video on the Reels thing.
Yeah.
Which a lot of times I'm just listening to it as a podcast anyway. I'm not actually watching it. I'm just sort of serving as a podcast. Yeah. And so that has been better, but I got to get it off my phone. It's bad.
It really is.
It's bad for everything. It's bad for the neck. Like.
Can I tell you? I'm sorry, I got to tell you. My daughter had surgery recently. She had to lay flat for 2 days.
Oh, man.
So my sister bought these glasses for her so she could watch TV while laying flat, and they're reflective. So you can lay flat and see what's in front of you. I use it all the time now.
Really?
With the neck
Do
thing.
they work?
So yeah, I can have a phone right here and sit just like this and see it just fine. It's fantastic.
It's not disorienting?
I highly recommend it. No.
Wow.
I get motion sickness. It does not bother me.
That makes sense.
Yes.
It seems like a very basic technology, but that's amazing.
It really is. Yeah.
So what are things that you do outside of work to bring joy to your life?
Oh, that's such a great question. Well, my kiddo, I know that's an easy answer, but she is a joy.
I mean, 8's a fun age.
She's full of energy, and she just learned to ride a scooter, which she's always been, real hesitant on anything with wheels.
What do you mean, like a
little? Yeah. It's not even a motorized scooter. And just watching her learn to balance and like push off and take off, she's like, you need to get a scooter. So I might be getting a scooter. I was taking her roller skating, and I got to be honest, I used to roller skate, and I still love it. And and I'm still good at it. I sent my husband videos flying around that rink, and I'm like, I feel like I'm 14 again. And so, to be honest, I know that's not the answer you expected. I love to roller skate.
Have you seen those videos of like older people and they're like almost like choreographed and they're kind of like dancing rules?
Yes.
That looks fun.
I would love to be on those teams.
They're vibing.
I am not beyond joining one of those.
I couldn't. I do not. I don't do things on wheels very well. I can do a bike.
Yeah.
And cars. I'm good with cars.
Yes, cars. Cars are easy.
I have a thing, especially like skateboarding and snowboarding. I have a thing. Going sideways is not natural to me.
Oh, yeah.
I can't do it.
No. Anything on snow I have not mastered yet. That's me.
Yeah, they're so dangerous, those snow sports.
Yeah.
That's it's hard for me to, because it's one of those things where the less confident you are, the more vulnerable you are to
Absolutely,
injury.
Yes.
If you're like in the zone and you're feeling and you're confident, then that's
you're good.
It. Yeah, it's the mental hangups that is how you get injured.
Absolutely. I would, if I did not have a kid, I would learn parkour. When you talk about confidence, I watch these people do this and I think that is freedom. That is freedom when you know your body that well that you can do parkour.
That's funny.
Absolutely. Yes.
And so are you in a band right now?
I am not. I was saying that, that had a purpose in my life. When I left Passion Community Church, I had been singing for 13 years straight, and I'm good at it. I know that sounds arrogant, but I am. I'm really good at it. And it's almost like that desire went away immediately. And so I will, for fun, every now and then I'll sit at my piano and sing something. But it's almost like in this season, I needed that to be gone to learn these other things about myself. And I hope it'll come back. I had a client ask me to sing for a big event here in February. And I thought, okay, I'll do that. Yeah. And there's part of me that's terrified because I'm like, but the desire's gone. I guess I'm going to do that and do that okay. It'll be fine.
Yeah, especially if you have one thing to focus on.
But I feel like it's almost like that had to go away. And there was a time when I felt really weirdly guilty about it. Like, why would you stop that? But it is what it is. This is part of like giving ourselves grace, is just being okay with the way things are as they are right now. So
I personally, I can't speak for my wife, but I am going through that right now with the theater. I had an epiphany when the pandemic happened and like it all went away. Like I had these 3 big opportunities that all went away. And I started to like really reflect on why I was doing it. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of reasons to do it, but I came to the realization that mine was almost 100% ego driven.
Yeah. Oh, that's a fascinating conversation. Yeah.
And it's hard for me to even unwrap the profession of acting from that. Like, I don't even know that it's possible.
Yes. It's so interesting you say that.
Because it is that. Yep. I mean, it's that one particularly.
Yeah. Yes.
Slightly different than dance, slightly different than opera or singing or being in a band.
Yeah.
There are certainly levels of that, and the more successful you get, I think the more ego comes into play in any of those industries. But for me in particular, I had always been more focused on the business of it, which is why I ended up with the name of this podcast, The Business of Art, because that has always been my focus in my brain. And that was one reason that I was very passionate about it, because I really did like that side of it. But just the me. And I like just the thought of like every role that I've gotten, that was an opportunity that I took away from somebody else who maybe like wanted it more. And not necessarily that they were like more deserving of it or whatever. And like, I'm not apologizing for it, but I just look back and it's like, did I give everything? And if so, what was it all for? And if not, why not? And yeah, that industry is a big topic of the pod. And,
absolutely.
Actually, you'll be episode 18. Episode 16 was my friend Jonathan Spivey, who has been on Broadway multiple times, is in a big national tour right now, and is by far the most successful, I would say, actor, but definitely the most successful theater actor I know.
Yeah.
And I'll leave it at this and tell you and audience members who are interested in learning more about that, listen to that episode, because we do a deep dive that's only a partial deep dive, because we could do an entire episode just on that, into the current state of theater business. But it's kind of going back to what you were talking about, with what we were talking about in terms of communication and in terms of the sort of disagreement and people's uncomfortability and unwillingness to even have conversations with people who think differently than them.
Absolutely.
I think that's kind of to me, the distillation of what has happened to that industry, because it is that, and filmmaking are inherently tend to be more political because they can be.
Yes.
It's hard in dance.
Yep.
To be political. It's just as difficult. A little bit easier maybe if you're like a pop star or a musician or a hip hop artist or whatever, but even still, it's different.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, yeah, what is your relationship with, and if the answer is little, that's fine, but in terms of art and business?
Art and business.
Yeah.
I feel like they belong together in some sense. You were just talking about, I was thinking about the confidence that somebody needs to stand on a platform. And you say, we're talking about ego. I get the ego thing. But for me, there's a level of wanting to inspire people in a way that others don't dare. Like that, to me, that was a line that I was always like, I'm going to cross that line. Like other people don't have the courage to do this thing. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it well. And the fact that it can change people, a song or the way you did something and looked in their eyes, to me, that belongs in business.
Yeah.
It 100% belongs there. That's where I think this, even crossing the line of pushing, I feel like I need to push joy into the workplace and say, no, we deserve something better than what we stand for or settle for. That it requires inspiration. It requires the willingness to look into somebody's eyes and say, you can do more. Like, not more effort. You can do more for yourself. You can, show up and be who you are. And actually people will like you more. If we're worried about people liking you and the ego, that it will feel more true to who you are, which brings you more fulfillment, which brings you more joy. And then I just want to burst out into song and sing them a song. I mean, to be quite honest, I think all the time, Matt, about how do you weave song into some of the things I do, because it moves people. It really does. I haven't figured that out yet. I'll let you know. Yeah, do let me know. I would like to participate. But that's where I see them intermingling, is the level of needing to be who you are when you fulfill a role or do what you do, and it's I don't know, it's hard to articulate it in words. That's what we need. That's what we're missing in the business world. And to me, that's an art form. It's an art form to give yourself that space to learn what drives you and what you're capable of, and what you're capable of when it comes to relating to another human being. Because so many people shut that out because it's not what we do. It's not who I am. But that's not true. We're all human. We all need connection.
How can we get people to seek out connection with people who disagree with them?
Ooh, that's such a good question.
Because me and my wife differ in this way. I love conflict.
Yes.
In a healthy way.
Absolutely.
I love.
Me too.
When I have a podcast and I see it's a debate between two people who are on opposite sides of the spectrum.
Yes.
I cannot wait to listen to it. Yes. Allison's the exact opposite.
Really?
Oh yeah, stresses her out. Does not want to listen to it.
Yeah.
I love it. It gets me like going. How do we convince more people to think that way?
Honestly, inspiration. I think that when you hear from people who can say, I was terrified of it, I did it, I grew close to someone I never thought I'd grow close to, or I connected with them in a way I never realized I'd connect, and I was better for it. Like now I want that. The more you tell success stories, I really think is what gets people to just even think about trying it. Because I get the whole conflict avoidance thing. I grew up conflict avoidant. You know, I was my leadership team when I joined the church that taught me how to not be conflict avoidant. And it changed my life, you know? So being able to tell a story like that and say, but it really does feel better on the other side of it. Not always, to be fair. There are some conflicts where it just doesn't go well, you know, for one reason or another, but you're still better for it because you tried, you know?
Yeah. And I think that, like, separating the fact that you have a disagreement about certain things from the fact that you probably agree on more things that you disagree
Yes,
about.
absolutely.
And kind of, we don't need to necessarily talk about the things that we disagree about if they're not relevant to helping us move forward to do whatever we need to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think there is an instinct, and I blame social media for this.
Yes.
There is an instinct to, oh, I know that person is X, so I don't even want to be in the room with them.
Absolutely. Or to label, you know, I find it interesting. I'm learning this, you know, as I grow in my own set of what I believe about the world and people and even spirituality, that we hold so tightly to a set of what beliefs. It becomes our ego. Like, this is who I am. And if you're not like me, then, you know, something is wrong with you. Something is automatically faulty.
Yeah, that's so egotistical.
It is. But it's how many people are wired. I'm wired that way. I have to still catch myself, you know, keep myself from doing that. But once you start learning not to do that, you start to discover how beautiful, you know, every person is and what they bring to the table and how much better we are when there are differences. It's hard to explain when you're not there yet, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. I don't know how to say that differently, but it's...
Well, what are couple more questions before we wrap up?
Yep.
What are some tools that people can use? I mean, I'll just kind of leave it open-ended like that. Tools that you recommend. I'll just start with meditation. We talked about it.
Love meditation.
It's
Absolutely.
incredible.
Yes.
My wife and I've had spurts. I've had 2 times in my life where I've had streaks of over 100 days.
Nice.
And it's been unbelievable, the change that you see during that time.
Absolutely.
We're back on the train right now.
Absolutely.
Allison's going for her first big streak like that. We've only been doing it for 2 weeks now, I think.
Yes.
Daily, 2 or 3 weeks. But I swear, and I think it's partially because I have so much experience with it.
Yeah.
I do it for a day or 2 and my life has changed. Like, I'm back to the way that I was.
Yes.
Conflict avoidance is so much easier. My communication with my wife is so much easier.
Yeah.
I'm not, you know, traffic is easier, literally.
Yeah.
So that's an easy one that anyone can do. There's so many apps. What are some other tools that you would recommend?
I would take that back even at a higher level and say, just carve out time. And whether you're doing meditation or you're reading and even if you don't know, giving yourself space to 15 minutes even, just start somewhere. Maybe set a timer at lunch if you're worried about getting up early, because some people say I can't get up early. And give yourself space to do something that fills your soul. And if it doesn't work the first time, try something else. If it's journaling or writing or calling a friend even, something that is nurturing to your soul, because I think that's where we're missing out. So it's a tool of sorts just to decide to give yourself time.
Yeah.
And then
call it time blocking.
Yes, time blocking for me. Yeah. Give it a different color on your calendar.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And get somebody to hold you accountable to it. I'm trying to think of what else has been transformative for me. Tools such as things that are self-discovery tools. If you're worried about being still, take an assessment while you're in your 15 minutes to start. Like slow. And I do the Working Genius assessment. It takes 10 minutes. It's, you know, you can hit me up to get one, or you can go online and workinggenius.com and get one. But learn about yourself. That's another tool, I think, that is eye-opening for people. And it requires you to do something if you're uncomfortable being still. And you read about it and you get to know yourself. Even to just share it with somebody else. It's a way to start to connect with yourself in a different way versus just pushing energy out. All right, let's learn about me. Pull some energy in. Get comfortable with who I am. Mindset type tools, like taking a 2-minute pause. There's a positive intelligence program I've been through where you do 2-minute, I'm trying to remember what they call them. But all you do is it's basically little mini meditations, deep breathing. Yeah. Yeah. But really just self-focus, connecting with another human being, learning about yourself, putting things on paper that you value, even exploring your own values, exercise, any exercise that is self-focused. It sounds selfish, but I think that's it. Self-focused tools that help you feel fulfilled. And sometimes figuring out what those are is the hardest part.
I'm convinced that almost all of life's woes can be at least mitigated through meditation, exercise, and diet.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Specifically eliminating any sort of alcohol or white sugar, which I do not do myself.
Yeah.
At some point in my life, I will be ready to do that, but young, healthy, no kids. I drink. I love my Manhattans.
Yes, I know. Well, it's so true.
And especially, like I tell people all the time, I got grief about this actually the other day. I won't say who, but I got grief because I was just like, I was giving some advice to a group, and I was like, if you have a presentation, don't drink the night before. Maybe don't drink for 2 or 3 nights before.
Get hydrated.
You'll get hydrated. You'll sleep better. Your skin will look better. You won't be puffy.
Yes.
And people gave me such grief, and I was like, "Come on, y'all! Like this is
for
not
a few days."
Also,
I know.
this is not subjective. Like this is fact.
Yes.
Like this is not.
Yes. Not just my opinion.
Yeah.
It's actually good for you. Well, and as a parent, I now have a child who has food intolerances, so I am being forced to discover how good it is to give up white sugar and even dairy and stuff that I didn't realize was impacting me. So, I don't know about bringing you joy. It's probably going to bring you some misery
at first.
At first, yeah.
But most things do. That's kind of the whole point of the obstacle is the way. Is like joy is often on the other side of struggle.
Absolutely.
In fact, I would go ahead and far as to say it's always on the other side of struggle of some kind.
Yes. That's fair.
And if you set your mind frame that way, then you just have to be patient, which is hard.
We're increasingly less patient, increasingly impatient. Yes.
Well, the tools that we've talked about will help you become more patient, literally.
Yes, absolutely.
It will actually help you will become more patient. It
yes,
might not seem possible. Especially for me, who's notoriously, the Polsons, I feel like, are notoriously impatient people, especially the men in our family. And I think my wife would agree. Like she has seen growth in the 5 years that we've been together, and most of it is meditation and exercise.
Absolutely,
it's like controversial figure shouldn't be, but controversial figure Joe Rogan always says it's like if you exercise first thing in the morning and you wear yourself out, you're too tired to be angry. You don't have the energy to fight these things. And
absolutely.
It's true, and that's a good way to think about it.
I always think about my level of like anxiety because I feel like there's always a steady hum.
Yes.
And and it's you increase that hum by doing and by constantly thinking and by constantly being in the mix of stuff. That meditation, that stillness, that reading, that journaling, whatever you're doing where it's for you, it's not to get something done, lowers that hum. For me, it lowers that hum.
Yeah.
Yeah, immediately.
It does.
It just puts you at a different level for your day and for life, like when it's regular practice. Yeah.
And it's intended for, if you don't feel the results, you might do it for 30 days. You might not consciously know the results. But when the moment comes where you are under intense stress or you have to do something in a moment of strife, you will see the results.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You will see the results.
Yes.
So let's end with the way that we end all of our podcasts, which is, and I think you'll have a really unique perspective on this. If somebody is a young artist or has any sort of passion that is maybe not immediately clear in our society, how they turn that passion into a profession. Mm-hmm. It's easy to talk about with arts. There's a million different things it could be. What would your advice be to that person?
Lots of conversation and lots of openness to what you learn about the possibilities. I think we hit a wall and we're automatically discouraged, or we feel like we have to fit it into a certain box and do a thing. But just kind of letting, it sounds a little bit cheesy, but letting the universe guide you to what you should do with that thing in this season, and being okay with it if it's not a clean, square peg in a square hole, because you're going to learn something from it that will eventually get refined into the thing, and you'll know when it clicks. But leaving openness that everything doesn't have to be perfect or exactly right, because that's the mindset I think we've had as a culture, You'll find it. If it's your passion, you will figure out how to channel that into something that drives you and feels right. Whether it's in a year or 5 years or 10 years, enjoy the journey, enjoy the people you connect with and learn from, and it will be even better along the way.
The journey is the joy.
Yes,
It
absolutely.
is.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Instead of trying to fit a square peg into a smaller square hole or a round hole,
Yes.
maybe you whittle away the hole.
Absolutely.
That's sort of a way to think about it. Or maybe
Absolutely.
whittle away at the shape of your peg. Change your shape a little
Or maybe
bit.
you throw that peg away altogether
Yeah, exactly.
and create a new board, a new
Yeah,
playing field.
exactly.
Which I
Yes.
love. I love that when somebody realizes I could be a pioneer here and do something different.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think that you're doing that.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
And I really appreciate you coming on the pod today.
And thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Matt.